Hello, everyone, and welcome back. We're live in Studio 109. This is Holistic Truth. We are focusing this quarter on allergies, blood sugar, and cardiovascular disease. I'm your host, Jamie Dorley, with the co-host, the one and only Christine Genovese. Welcome back, Christine.
Thanks, Jamie. Happy to be here.
Oh, yeah, you were glowing, bringing back all that sunshine from Florida. How have you been?
I have been really good. I've been super busy. Lots of goodness going on.
Oh, yeah? Tell us about one of your big highlights from the end of Q1.
Oh my gosh. One of my big highlights from the end of Q1. Well, we did the professional training event
There's one.
in Clearwater, Florida. Sold out event. Amazing. About 175 people experiencing what they preach on the beach.
Yeah, it was excellent to practice what we preach on the beach as we're transforming through the fire and really talking about the body being on fire right now.
Mm-hmm.
And we talked about allergies on our last Holistic Truth podcast. And this time we really want to talk about blood sugar and looking at insulin resistance and type 1, type 2, and type 3 diabetes. So before we get into that, what are some of the underlying causes when we think about blood sugar regulation in general and, pre-diabetic and diabetes? So what are some of the underlying causes for more of an energetic component?
When you talk about blood sugar issues in general, like hyperglycemia, right? The person has not received the love that they were looking for and not felt loved enough in particular. The person feels like they don't necessarily deserve the love of other people's. And so being able to receive love is really the key when it comes to blood sugar issues. Typically, when we start moving into diabetes, and I do have sort of, when we get into that, I'll talk about a little bit more what it is in terms of each of those levels. But the diabetic really longs for love. And they haven't really learned what love is. And that's one of the reasons why they have this resistance. So if you think about the organs that it affects, right, the pancreas is really a busy, hardworking organ. And of all the internal organs, it is the most yang or masculine in the body, okay? And it teams up with the spleen. So you've really got the pancreas and the spleen. And the spleen is more feminine. I know you never thought of your organs as masculine or feminine, but the pancreas literally means...
Well, not at least the pancreas and the spleen. I was thinking of some other organs, but that's the time for another show.
But pan, the word pan, like that part, means the whole or the universe or the God of creation. And kriya means flesh. So if you think about pancreas, it literally means everything connected to the value of the soul takes place there. The flesh may fall away, but the soul is everlasting. And so the relationship of the divine is really expressed there. So of all the things we talk about, not being able to give or receive love, that's really what life is all about. That's really our connection to the divine source, God of all that is. And so seeing how the pancreas and the spleen work together is really important.
It's really interesting to really go that deep with it, right? Because when we look at how the body's working in general, a lot of people are suffering with prediabetes, diabetes type 1, 2, or 3. And it really goes back to this whole thing of insulin resistance. This ultimately leads to metabolic syndrome and cardiovascular disease, right? But you look at it, people have a lot of abdominal obesity, right? They call that VAT, visceral adipose tissue. You may have high blood pressure or blood sugar, right? Then you get an abnormal lipids and the fat cells become insulin resistance and eventually cardiovascular risk. But let's look at what's going on. People are eating the wrong types of food, right?
Absolutely.
So you're eating food, normally you would have an insulin response, right? And then you would have the insulin help transport the sugar inside the cells. It actually sends a signal inside the cell to the GLUT transport vesicles come up, and they open the doors. It's like opening up the door to allow people, and it allows the sugar inside the cell. The reason the sugar is circulating in the blood is either you're eating too much sugar or you're insulin resistant, meaning you can't get the sugar inside the cell. So the cells are actually starving, so then you'll get this whole process of now the body is converting that sugar to body fat. You feel tired, hungry, moody, and then you're craving more food. So the body's become resistant to insulin because there's too much sugar. You can't process it. Plus, you got very low nutrients in there. So it's really a underlying cause of two things going on. Too much sugar, you're not burning enough.
And I think one of the things that I notice, especially as much as we travel around the country, is how many people are inflamed, right? How many people are overweight? How many people are obese, right? And a lot of it has to do with metabolic syndrome and insulin resistance.
Yeah, so if you look at, I say type 1, 2, or 3. Type 1 is very simply, you do not produce any more insulin. The pancreas has been burnt out, like you had
Right.
mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
Type 2 is you're still producing insulin, but your body doesn't use it well.
Mm-hmm.
And then you know what type 3 is?
I do.
What is type 3?
It's often called Alzheimer's or dementia.
Yeah, it's inflammation and diabetes of the brain.
Mm-hmm.
So long term, that's a huge concern for us, especially people on statin medications, diabetic medications. They deplete CoQ10. That's a big nutrient in the brain. And when that gets low, you're at much higher risk for type 3 diabetes. But there's a lot of stages of insulin resistance. So you want to catch it early. I see everyone's pre-diabetic in our country. So your body does not process the sugars well. You become more inflamed. Not only the cells, the fat cells become pro-inflammatory and insulin resistant, but the muscle cells do too. So people have it both ways. They have the fat cells pro-inflammatory, the muscles are insulin resistant, and now you have a recipe for disaster. So what we want to do is we want to have a strategy. We talked about the shake a day for the quarter. Did you have your shake a day today?
I did.
Which one did you have?
I believe I had your favorite today.
Yes, the JD chocolate Reese's peanut butter cup.
It was really good today, actually. It was super good.
Yeah, because we needed it, right?
Mhm.
And the shake a day for the quarter is the Hydro Beef chocolate collagen, clean collagen protein with the Pro Reds.
Mm-hmm.
So you can utilize this as your shake a day because food is information. If you eat the wrong thing, first meal of the day, I don't care if it's 7 a.m. or noon, if you're intermittent fasting, is fine. Whatever you eat tells your cells what to do. So if you have a shake a day, you have a normal release of blood sugar, you have a little bit release of insulin. The insulin's able to get the food inside the cell to the mitochondria to be burned for energy. Your cravings are reduced or eliminated, your energy's up, and your body becomes a fat-burning machine. What happens if you eat Dunkin' Donuts, couple donuts for breakfast?
Oh my gosh, you're gonna crash.
Well, first you're gonna have this big release
Be
of
high,
sugar, right?
yeah. You're gonna be
So
high,
you have
and
the
then you're gonna
high
crash.
sugar, high insulin, hyperinsulinemia, hyper with sugar, right? So
Mhm.
you have high glucose, you have high insulin, and then what happens is that the body will take a lot of sugar and convert it to fat,
Yeah.
right?
Mm-hmm.
What are your cravings going to be like?
You're gonna crave the
Through
sugar.
the roof, yeah. You're going to crave sugar, caffeine, or nicotine, right? That's what people crave when they need to pick me up. Your energy levels are going to be inconsistent and low. And what happens then? You become a fat storage machine. Does anybody want that?
I don't think so.
No.
No.
So you want to be able to become a fat burning machine so that if you have a little treat every now and then or at a birthday or something like that, your body will burn up. So we're going to show you some of the tools that you can use to make your cells more sensitive to insulin. How do we deal with this if we're already in this diabetic, pre-diabetic, or insulin-resistant stage? And then what are some of the ways that we can address the underlying causes?
Love it.
When we did the Allego scan in our clinic at the World of Wellness, what we found is one of the nutrients that any pre-diabetic or diabetic is deficient in is chromium. They've taken this out of the food and created bromide instead as a preservative. So chromium is really deficient. We use a PRT of chromium. We use cinnamon in the glucolyze. So glucolyze is going to make your body more sensitive to insulin so that we can get the nutrients inside the mitochondria where they can be burned. It's interesting when we survey people that are obese, what do they say? They have very low energy. You think, how is that possible? They're not getting any nutrients inside the blast furnace, the mitochondria. Therefore, they do have very low energy. We also use things like alpha lipoic acid, which is really good that we use the R alpha lipoic acid. That is the active form. Regular alpha lipoic acid is only 50%. So these are all nutrients that make your body more sensitive to insulin. The alpha lipoic acid really help with some of the advanced glycosylated end products where the sugar actually corrodes the end of the nerve. That's why people lose feeling, or they lose their fingers or toes, or eventually maybe their feet, God forbid their legs. So Glucolyze is great to use for anybody that's pre-diabetic or diabetic. You could even use it acutely. How do you use it?
Well, you can use it as a nice dessert cheat. I know we always have it out when we're going to have a buffet dinner, and we usually put it on the dessert table because you can actually monitor your blood sugar level, right? If you have a blood sugar monitor on, some of those watches are cool. Before, take a few Glucolyze. I usually take 4. I kind of like it. It tastes cinnamony. It's really good. And then you can measure it again, and you'll see that most of the time your blood sugar hasn't moved at all, which is great. So it actually helps your body manage it.
There's a lot of blood sugar formulas on the market that are fantastic. This has a couple of key nutrients that you don't normally see from my experience back in the bodybuilding days. One is vanadyl sulfate, and we'll use a Trax form. So these are covalent bonded minerals, highly bioavailable, so you get better results. Vanadyl sulfate, or vanadium, is actually an insulin-like mimicker. It will mimic insulin in the body, right? Therefore, you won't need your body to produce as much insulin as before. So it's a comprehensive formula, 2 caps 2 to 3 times per day. And as you said, you can biohack sometimes for your dessert or your wine by using Glucolyze for those acute phases you're dealing with. The second one we'll
this
talk
one's
about.
my favorite.
Let's hear about it.
I love Nutriglutide. This is one of the most powerful formulas I think we've added to our line in the past year. It's got 6 PRTs in one bottle. And if you know anything about Nutritional Frontiers, we love to use patented, research, trademarked ingredients because it's the highest quality form of an ingredient that we can. So we put 6 of them in this formula.
Yeah, if you would buy these separately, your cost would be about $250. So we're known as a company for formulations, not products.
Right.
So we've taken now Glucolyze for insulin resistance and diabetes. Now we're going to address the 4 most common underlying causes of not only diabetes and blood sugar mismanagement, but we're transitioning out of metabolic syndrome and cardiovascular disease. So the big 4, one are insulin resistance, which the Glucolyze will address.
Yep.
Number 2 is cortisol.
Oh, baby.
Right? So when cortisol
the stress
is high,
hormone, yes.
Yeah, if you had high stress?
I've had a little high stress.
Yeah. So when cortisol is high, cortisol is a fat storage hormone just like insulin. So when those 2 are high, no matter what you do, doesn't matter, you're going to store fat. The third one is we want to make sure we're balancing inflammation. Mm-hmm. And the 4th one is you want to stimulate lipolysis or fat burning. Right. So insulin resistance, stress, fat burning, and also inflammation. And we do that with one formulation, Nutriglutide. You can bundle this right up with the Glucolyze, right? Mm-hmm. So we have ingredients in here like chromium, cinnamon, and berberine to all help with blood sugar. We're going after the stress with Sensorial and L-theanine. So we got a trademarked ashwagandha and a trademark theanine, the suntheanine. I love the CertMax. This actually works on sirtuin genes because when these fat cells become inflamed, they promote more fat storage. We used to think years ago that fat was inert. There was no metabolic processes. In fact, that's completely wrong.
Right.
These are pro-inflammatory. They promote more fat storage. So the fatter you are, the more fat you will store. You have to cool down these fat cells. And we do that with CertMax. One of the very most innovative ingredients come from black Thai ginger. So really nice. We would learn that at the Supply Side West show we go to every October in Vegas. And then the Capsamax, the red hot chili pepper, not the band you like.
Yeah.
But the red hot chili pepper that a friend of mine, Dr. Amy Lee, studied at UCLA School of Medicine with all her weight loss studies. So rather than buying 6 bottles, would you prefer 6 bottles or 1 bottle?
Yeah, obviously 1 bottle. But what I love about this too is if you've noticed anybody that has belly fat in particular, right? You know, they're kind of like this pear-shaped. That's really what the cortisol is doing. It's holding the weight right in the belly. So this is one of the reasons why I like this formula. It's also great, not just for the blood sugar management and cortisol management, but for weight loss in general.
Absolutely. Got me down to my goal weight for the beach event last month. And I was really excited because the Nutriglutide, what I learned too is I feel a lot more full.
Yeah, faster.
Regardless of what I eat. So I'm eating a little slower. not eating the volume. Even if it's healthy food, the volume is not there.
I totally agree with that.
So one of the ingredients that's in the NutriGlutide is berberine. Now, berberine you may have heard about before for candida.
Yeah,
right?
Berberine's becoming really hot and popular right now in a lot of the magazines that are out in terms of things to use to
they
help
call
with
it the
weight
natural
loss.
Ozempic because what berberine does is it works twofold. It helps address the candida and therefore balances blood sugar, right? So with our formulas, we don't use like one ingredient. So we combine this in a liquid herbal tincture. We took berberine and we added cinnamon right to it. So it's a nice liquid dropper. Some people put this in their purse. They'll pop it in right before dinner.
Or their shake.
For a bigger meal. Is that what your secret weapon
Yeah,
is?
it is.
I love it. So we got a few ways we can address this. If you already have blood sugar issues or unknown, they call it idiopathic, unknown causes, and you start to get some numbness, neuropathies, tingling, pins and needles in the fingers or usually the toes. Think about how the body works, right? Circulation is going to get to the main areas, the heart, the liver, and the brain. It may not get all the way to some of the toes and feet. So neuropathies works on really 3 different metabolic pathways, right? We have the nutritional deficiencies that we have cinnamon and alpha-lipoic acid. We have an anti-inflammatory in here with boswellia, and we address some of the nutritional deficiencies with the B vitamins. So
I love that boswellia is actually active, right, in frankincense. Did you know that frankincense is the highest vibrational scent for divine masculine?
Oh, I love to hear that. You learn something new every day.
And do you know what the highest vibrational scent is for the divine feminine?
Amex?
No.
No.
It's Rose.
Oh, Rose. That's right. I do. My mom was called, her name was Mary Rose. Now
There
I
you
remember.
go.
So frankincense for the man, rose for the female.
There you go. You got it.
So we're going to finish this up with Candikill. Why would we talk about Candida formula for blood sugar?
Oh, because isn't that where it feeds on sugar?
Yes, the Candida loves sugar, alcohol, fermented sugars. So when you're having crazy cravings and you can't stop, especially in the evening, the Candida is getting excited and needs their food, right?
Got it.
So a great way to approach any weight loss or blood sugar program is by starving the Candida, taking away the sugar, taking away the wine, taking away the alcohol. Second thing would be to kill the Candida with something like Candikill. This was 4 different products. You're seeing berberine again, caprylic acid, oregano, all in here. So we're going to kill off the Candida, and then we're going to help transport it out of the body. This is another one I use with the NutriGlutide for my weight loss. It helps if you have psoriasis, eczema, cravings, bloating, really stubborn weight gain that you can't get off. And if you're having cravings that you just can't avoid, I would say let's get you on Candikill. I would say within 3 to 4 days of getting off the sugar, you'll start feeling more mental clarity, alertness, and more mental energy without any cravings.
Awesome. Well, when we start talking about, severe conditions with blood sugar, right? Jamie mentioned diabetes type 1, type 2, and type 3. So when we think about what diabetes type 1 is, that is a person who really needs sweetness, okay? They are craving attention, love, and care, feeling insecure, perhaps, or overly needy or reliant on other people. Sometimes there's a little self-centeredness about it and maybe being focused on your own inadequacies and wanting to appear like indispensable to others, kind of like a hero kind of complex sometimes. Listening and surrounding yourself with too much negativity. And like Jamie said, that comes from the pancreas being burnt out. And remember that pancreas is really about the soul, right? And your connection to source. And I really believe that we're all here and that our biggest purpose is to give and receive love freely because that's what the divine of all that is does. But when you talk about type 2, right, he said that's when it's not functioning properly, right? It's not totally burnt
you're
out.
still producing insulin, but your body's not utilizing it properly.
And so basically what that means is you've got a fear of fully participating in life, right? You're half in, half out, right? You have this great need to control or to even know things, maybe a deep need for attention and approval. maybe a constant craving for love paired with a belief that maybe you're unworthy of it or undeserving of love. Some people have a deep-seated guilt, feeling like they have to struggle to survive, often losing themselves in a relationship, like looking for that outside of themselves instead of within themselves. A constant need for sweetness in their life, really to mask a feeling of weakness or limitation or the belief that there's just not enough, and maybe stuck in their own world of imitation or lack. Now, when we get to type 3, remember we said it was kind of Alzheimer's or dementia? That's really a loss of power, okay? Like this inability to really deal with life. Too many suppressed emotions. You know, I talk about how when you stuff emotions, it's supposed to be energy in motion. When you stuff it, that's when it gets stuck and pools in the body and causes the dysfunction. Typically, someone who's got type 3 is really overwhelmed by life. They want to run away to maybe another time that was more joyful, not really wanting to remember or be fully present, really feeling lost and confused, and has really anxiety relating to life as it is.
Yeah, and if you use a simple analogy, think about a doorbell in the old days, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know, if you press on the doorbell and nothing happens, that's type 1. Just doesn't work. There's no, pancreas isn't working. Type 2 is you hit the doorbell a few times and you can hear it ring once, but even though you hit it 3 or 4 times, it works, but it's not working as well, right? And like type 3, the power's off in the house.
Right.
So very simple analogy to understand, but the goal is to get this as early on as we can. Prevention's always the best cure. And if you're suffering during any of these stages, there is always hope.
Right. And one of the things we try and do is to present things holistically, right? So that you can heal things on a mental, emotional, and physical level, right? So diving into some of those deeper issues to see if you can get your body the help it needs to shift some of these things and control blood sugar issues or insulin resistance, but then also looking underneath that, what's deeper? You know, what is your relationship with love, with yourself and with others?
Well, I love you addressing the underlying causes on more the energetic pathway. You know, you got to look at this is that the old days of working out and eating good aren't enough anymore. You need to make sure you're doing your shake a day, your workouts, your prayers, your soul intelligence, making sure you're doing your nutrients, if it's glucolyzed, Nutriglutide, Candid Kill, neuropathies, Berberine Plus, whatever the solution is for you. And you'll be on your way to fully, thriving instead of just surviving. So thanks so much for all your support in Q2 of 2025. We really appreciate it. Let's have a great quarter as we prepare for summertime and make sure we're getting in our best shape so we can really enjoy this year. And we appreciate all support. So let's have a great quarter and God bless.